Well, hello and welcome to the program. This is Minority Opinions Podcast. I'm Hito.
And I am Ricardo.
And we hope you are staying safe and staying healthy for during these difficult and weird and scary times. So much has happened since our last episode.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked, over the microphone, it was literally a month or two, and I legit cannot remember when it was.
Yeah, so we were gonna release an episode at the end of May because we recorded an episode, but then the day we recorded this particular episode, which won't air ever, I decided to put it away forever. It's gone, because that was the day that George Floyd was murdered.
Yeah.
And it was not, the news was not blowing up when we were recording, but as soon as the recording stopped and, after I went to bed, that happened. The footage showed up on the internet, all over on the internet, and we thought it would be best. We thought it would be very insensitive to release an entertainment-related stuff when the USA and basically the world is having a moment, this really important moment.
Yeah, I think the episode we were going to release it on a Tuesday, but that Tuesday was Blackout Tuesday. And we thought, you know what, it would be better to let people with the voices they needed right now to speak louder than everybody else right now because, they need it more than us right now. So we thought, well, okay, we'll step aside and let the people who have a higher voice to share than us, we're just two minorities talking about movies. Let's let the people that need to talk right now.
Yes. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Stories Matter.
They do.
And yeah, it just felt like talking about Space Force while there were protests all over, happening all over the all 50 states in the US, I think. It just felt weird and wrong.
Yeah, and to compensate for that, we thought everyone's been at home because of COVID and everyone's starting to put more of their time into learning about Black literature, Black films. And when Hito and I thought, why not in a sense promote two possibly three Black-led films that discuss different aspects of the Black experience in America and some parts of it global in a sense, and just talk about it for a bit and give a sense of where Black cinema is at right now.
Yeah. So for this episode, you can see it in the title, we chose the newest Spike Lee film, The Five Bloods, on Netflix, and we also picked Ava DuVernay's brilliant miniseries, When They See Us. And I want to get this out because it's important. We're minorities, but we're not Black. And I feel like we might say some things that may be we might accidentally say some things that some of you might find offensive or insensitive. And if that happens, please call us out and, let us know that, hey, this word or, the phrasing of this thing was kind of wrong and, offensive and stuff like that. Please let us know. We are trying to grow as a person. We want to be an ally to the Black community and Black Lives Matter movement, but we're trying to learn. We're trying to be a better person. So yeah.
Yeah, you tweeted us or anything like that. Just phrasing, word choice, historical facts that might be wrong. Just mention it, and then it's all about learning. That's what we're doing today. The day of recording. At least for me in the States, today is Juneteenth, June 19th in the States, which it's a little summary. It's basically just when I think it happened in Texas. That was when the Rangers came to Texas, saying the emancipation has happened, declaring that there's freedom for the slaves now. So today is basically the day where slaves found out that they became free from slavery. And that's the gist of it. And apparently, like 45 of the 50 states like honor it as a national holiday in a sense, or like a state holiday. I never heard about it until like probably like 2 years ago. It's not really promoted that much in school. Like I'd say like high schools and middle schools, more colleges, but not really like federally funded schools below college. I read like most of it is like people attend mass, they have barbecues, they have rodeos. It's a very Texan kind of holiday, like in origin, but then the idea of becoming a free person expanded itself to the other states. So it could differ on each state.
Okay.
Which I should mention, HBO. I don't know if you read about this. HBO is releasing Watchmen, the TV show, for free this entire weekend.
Oh, nice.
And that's a very black-led show, and I highly recommend it. It's a very powerful critique on race, and the main enemy is the KKK, so that's always good. They a lot of killing KKK members, so
yeah,
recommend it.
Cool.
Down to the juicy parts of the. Well, I'm not sure juicy, but down to the meat of the podcast. When They See Us,
Yes, so this was written and directed by Ava DuVernay, who of course did Selma, 13th, and recently A Wrinkle in Time, and it is the story of the Central Park 5 case, in which 5 African-American boys were wrongfully convicted and imprisoned for the crime they didn't commit. And it shows how the police abused their power and what these kids went through between 1989 to early 2000s. And this is one of the most sobering and impactful visual media I've ever seen. I don't think I'll forget this for the rest of my life. It was really powerful. And especially because I didn't know too much about this case. I knew the gist of it, but not in detail. And watching this show gave me an insight into what really happened, and it was very educational.
Yeah, I thought I was very impressed because there's an ensemble of. It's interesting. This show is like split into 2 segments in a sense. There's teenage years, and then there's adulthood. And in the beginning, you have the initial case. Like the premise is like a jogger gets murdered and
not murdered.
Oh,
assaulted. Yeah, attacked, assaulted, raped,
and like brutally beaten almost to death. She can't walk anymore. And then with of course very racist undertones, this police chief is like, arrest every African male from 12 to 16, and it's like that's a pretty broad search criteria.
The African American kids who happened to be at the Central Park when the assault occurred, because there was I didn't know this thing, but there were kids who were wilding, like basically
wilding out. They mentioned
harassing like people walking by kind of thing. Like I didn't know that.
And then it slowly shows you this blatantly racist police chief who's just like giving these very like unmotivated like orders to like just coerce these young African American males into giving a fake testament in order to send them to jail. And it's like you clearly see how the cops are abusing the power to make these kids give fake information just so white people could feel comfortable knowing, oh, our police solved the case. But then you really see the effects of these kids being affected by like racist cops abusing their powers in the court system.
Yeah, they tortured these kids both physically and psychologically. I think the police interrogated them without parental supervision for like 42 hours. I think that's what they say in the show. And these kids were not given any food. They were not allowed to sleep, and these cops were like, do you want to go home? Like, then let's get this over with. Let's just make this easier for both of us. Just we're going to tell you what you're supposed to say, and we're going to tape it. So you say the things that we told you to say, and we will let you go. And that was really disgusting. And what was really upsetting was how the police and the prosecutor made a case based on very little evidence. Like, they didn't have physical or scientific evidence to back their claim. And there's the scene in episode 2 where Linda Fairstein, who is this evil white prosecutor, and incidentally, she is the one who is responsible for what happened to these boys, telling this other prosecutor, like, what's the line for the victim? The victim's name is Patricia Miley. They were discussing how they didn't have enough, evidence to, convict these boys. Like, and one of the prosecutors, played by Vera Farmiga, was like really on the fence. She was like, I'm really questioning what we're doing here. And Linda Fairstein, this woman was like, I'm sick of this shit. This fucking city, every time something awful happens, they just grimace and just move on. And not this time. And she was so adamant about just solving this case, even though they didn't have any evidence suggesting these boys actually assaulted and raped this woman.
Yeah, and it's like each episode has like a different aspect of how power and corruption can really affect a group of minorities. Like the first episode, it mainly talks about how police search parties and like pre-investigations are very motivated by race. Second episode, it becomes a bit of a courtroom drama at one point where we see the lawyers do the defense cases. Like, it's the most exciting, quote unquote, of the series, because if you're not aware of the story, you're thinking, well, they're clearly innocent. The proof is clearly there that they're not going to be found guilty. Mm-hmm. But then, the story, I'm not sure if it's really a spoiler, but like they go to jail.
Yeah.
And then it fast forwards a few years, and it shows you not only the effects of prison, but the effects after prison. Like, you can't vote, you can't get certain jobs. And beyond that, it really shows how, especially in the kid's life, he's Puerto Rican, shows how your family life really affects you when you're known to be like a felon, and how it can really affect your interpersonal relationships with people, even though you know that you're innocent. And then finally, you understand, like, to this day, like, what happened to these people? What are the effects? I mentioned Zahito, like, I think after the second episode, the energy and the tone of the series kind of drops a bit. Because, in every court scene, in every movie, it's always supposed to be elevated, suspense. Like, oh, yeah, I have this evidence, here's the music and such like that. And it's really in the power of the actors, I think, really bring this series to life. Because when you see these kids being interrogated, their reactions are very, like, they're dripping with fear and angst and anxiety. And you really buy that they're scared. These are terrified people. And I think it's in the court scenes. I forgot his name. He's from Moonlight.
Jharrel Jerome.
His reactions when he's crying, you really, it's just a very, it's a very heart-wrenching scene to look at, because there are 5 characters. One of them is only 14, and he's crying like he's a child. I think Tron is his name, Antron. Him, Yusef, and the other characters, they're legit being like violated of basic rights, and these actors are showing it. Like, I like how in some parts of the miniseries it gets a little bit like not surrealistic, but like fantastical, where like they'll be by themselves in the courtroom with the lights heavily, like, artificially blown at them. But it's not really realistic in how it wants to look. But it's very sensational, like impressionistic. Like, how do they feel about all this? And like, they feel legit tortured, and they feel like singled out. And that's, there's a lot of scenes of flashbacks, especially in episode 4. Like, what if I didn't go to the park? What if I didn't do this? Where would I be at this point? It makes you think, what if that happened to me? And how terrible this is for those young people. the use of flashbacks in this miniseries are very, very effective because it keeps reminding you, I shouldn't be here. I could have been somewhere else. I could have been with my girlfriend. I could have been at the pier. And I think episode 4, that one's the most emotional for me at least. That one hit me the most because it really shows you how your basic rights can be taken away at any moment. And one part, I thought this was like a fiction at one point. It was when, Agent Orange came on screen. And I was like, oh, this is just fake. Maybe DuVernay just did it for fake. And I was like, no, this is real. Oh my God. Agent Orange is our soon-to-be not President Trump. He put an ad out in New York Times. He paid $95,000 and he paid to talk to fund the police in New York City, which you guys are getting defunded, I heard. Second, he was encouraging the death penalty. And this was like in the 80s when he was just some nobody TV show host. Like a joke. He was a joke. But because 13th mentioned this, like he was the reason why New York specifically got more funding for the police. Because some shows they include Agent Orange because they want to make a stance about it where it can feel a bit forced sometimes, like, oh, okay, this feels out of place. This one, it organically fits into the story because his message directly affects how people's perception, mainly white, middle class, upper class citizens, felt about crime. So in a sense, this is very meta, but very historical at the same time. Like the timing for this show it's insane. I think it's legit relevant to what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. And that monster still thinks that these 5 boys did it. So, Jesus Christ, yeah.
Even with DNA, he's like, they still did it.
Well, they don't believe. That asshole doesn't believe in science. So, yeah. Episode 4 definitely a really, really emotional episode. But I want to get into the episode 3 for just a minute because you said the tone shifts very differently between the first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes. But for me, the only episode that I found tonally jarring was episode 3 because that one's the one that feels more modern. Like it felt like something that you see in the like early 90s and early 2000s like TV show. The use of hip hop music was very prevalent throughout the episode, and partly because that's the episode that focuses on the adult Kevin and Yusuf, Raymond and Antron, and everyone except for Corey, and them dealing with the world, how the world changed over during the time they spent, the like 5, maybe 10 years in prison, and how it changed drastically. They're trying to like adapt to the real world, the society, and they're having a really hard time. That I think is slightly different, the way DuVernay approached it. And also the most emotional bit throughout the entire miniseries for me was in the beginning of episode 3, where Antron is talking to his mom at the juvie. Antron says, everybody seems to hate me. Like everybody in the world seems to hate me for things that he didn't do. And his mom says, all I do all day is love you. Don't you ever feel like you're alone. I'm walking through this with you. Like you cry, I cry. You scared, I'm scared. You mad, I'm mad. You free, I'm free. You and me always. And like that moment, I lost it. I just started just crying my eyes out because it was so touching, but also like really gut-wrenching at the same time. It's like, fuck, like he doesn't deserve this. None of these boys deserve this. And it cuts to like her saying those things, and it cuts to 10 how many years later when Antron gets out of the jail, the juvie. And I think that made it really powerful. You know, the fact that we don't see what he went through and what most of these kids went through. I don't know, it's just it really hit me.
Yeah, it's like I mentioned earlier, like it mentions stuff like it really shows you how unproductive the current, I'm not sure if it's still relevant, but how current the criminal code is after you leave prison. Like, you know, if you apply for a job like IHOP or something like that, it's like, are you a felon? If you put a yes, you're gonna be less likely to get a job. Okay, can I get insurance? No, you can't. Okay, can I vote? No, you can't. And it really shows like what can you do if I serve my time and I'm quote unquote good again? Like you could be lying, you could be better like 10 times. How really productive is it if you can't find a job? I know one of the I think it was Yusef, or I forgot which one it was. He's working for Starbucks, and I'm like, yeah, like if you could work for Starbucks and stuff like that, like it really shows how limited you are when you become a felon. Like if the idea, like it's like a very traditional idea, like, oh, when a man spends time in jail, he learns his ways and he changes, he reads books, and then they're like, okay, have fun, figure out what you have to do with your life. And it's like, well, what can I do? What can I do now? And that's something prison does to you. Not only the jail time you serve, but the after effects. People parade your face like, hey, these are 4. Like one moment that really got me, like that really like made me shocked was when I think Raymond, he was visiting his dad's, you know, played by Michael Pena. He visits his dad's apartment.
No, not Michael Pena. It's not Michael Pena.
It's not Michael Pena?
Well, it's John Leguizamo.
What?
No, it's not Michael Pena. I know what Michael Pena looks like. It's John Leguizamo.
What? That's him?
Yes, that is him.
I thought that was Michael Pena the entire time.
No, that's John Leguizamo.
Dude, they look like twins. Oh my god.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. They both look. I thought it was just him, but older.
No, it's John Leguizamo.
Okay, well, I've been lied to. He was like the dad. He got remarried. I forgot her name, but she's from like Orange is the New Black. I forgot her name.
Okay, that's where she was from.
Yeah, she's from Orange is the New Black. She also played the sassy Puerto Rican woman in jail. And I was like, hey, it's because I used to watch that show a lot until like season 3, but I dropped off. But what's it called? It really when he gets remarried to the girl, she treats Raymond, full grown up now, Puerto Rican. She treats him like a criminal, and she literally calls him like a rapist. And I was like, yeah, this is the. I felt like with the other characters like Yusef, Tron, and so on, and them, their family internal life, I felt like was kind of that's my only thing I had to say, like critique wise. I feel like they kind of shelved it, and they focused a lot of it on Raymond and his life. Because I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like I feel like they had more to work with Raymond, so that's why they focused more on him, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but they really show how social attitudes kind of weigh on you, and you're pushed sort of turn in a certain path. Like he led himself to not let himself, but he was guided to start selling crack and stuff like that because that's all you could do. That's really all you could do.
Yeah,
no one would accept him as a job, and that's really how relevant this movie is. I mean, miniseries.
Yeah, I think one thing that was really eye-opening was how companies or like establishments don't put 2 felons in the same like workplace at the same time. Like when one of the characters was filling out a paper as a test, how to write your resume, and are you a felon? Are you convicted for sexual crime or something? Like there are levels to like which job you can get depending on your like the conviction that you got, and apparently sex offender is like the worst thing on the list. Like you basically, if you get hired, you're really lucky.
Yeah, I think the idea is like sex offender, like let's say you're a felon, right? it could be it's technically a felony to use fake money,
Mm.
but then like the idea that you're a sex offender, it's the idea like, well, did you pee in public and get caught? Did you have sex in public and get caught? But since they were on the news and there wasn't people like internet wasn't a thing back then, so everyone was just like, oh, the rapist. So that idea is already like it's a weight on your shoulder. It's like a brand saying I did this. But when everyone knows you didn't do it, that's why it probably is the worst of all things. Because no one does the research. They just assume, oh, you did this. And it's like, well, no. But the news said you didn't. It's like, I didn't.
Yeah. And then episode 4, like when episode 3 finished, I was like, oh my God, what the fuck happened to Corey? Because the fact that we didn't see a single second of what Corey went through is like, oh no, episode 4 is going to be a really, really rough episode. And
yeah,
it was,
I was wondering, because the first episode I was like, okay, the kids, second court case, third adulthood, and fourth I was like, well, they already did adulthood, so would it be like a modern day, like 2016 or something like that? And they didn't show prison time for any of the kids. They really only they only showed like, oh, the before and after. I'm not sure wise is the right word, but they focused their resources on Corey Wise's experiences in prison, and it's a brutal, horrific time spent in like 3 different prisons.
Yeah.
And it really shows you what prisons can do to you if you have that like halo over your head caused by, racist cops, and it shows you the horrific, after effects of being sentenced to prison for like 15, 20 years knowing you didn't do it.
Yeah. And what's really infuriating and really, really sad was Corey was not like on the list of suspects, well, the quote unquote suspects that the police had. Corey, it was like a really bad timing. Like he went to the police station with Yusuf, I think. Was it Yusuf?
Yeah, I think it was Yusuf, yeah.
Yeah, just to accompany him. And Yusuf went home with his mom at some point, and Corey fell asleep at the police station, and this racist cop decided, oh, there's one more. We need one more because Yusuf went home, so we're going to pick this kid. And he happened to be the only one who was 16 and above, and he got the harshest sentence, and that is so unfair.
Yeah, it just really, the film does a really and good job of explaining how cops and systematic racism in America really drips down into specific precincts. Like this is just one precinct in New York. Like imagine how it is, and New York's considered like quote unquote liberal in some cases.
Yeah.
So it's like imagine how it is in other areas where precincts are even smaller, they're less busy, and in a sense they're more not caring about the actual law. They care more about personal motivations and agendas.
Also, in this episode, Corey, like, his experience at, like, multiple facilities, correctional facilities, is really hard to watch. He gets beat up a lot, and the guards don't protect him, except for this one white guy who treats Corey like a human being. I would very much like to know if this guy ever existed, or if it's like a compilation of multiple real life people, based on multiple real life people that Corey encountered at multiple correctional facilities. And he doesn't use him like other guards did. He doesn't abuse him. He doesn't try to make him bribe like so many other correctional officers did. And at one point, Corey asks him, why are you so nice to me? And he says, I have a boy back home, and if what happened to you happened to him, I want to know somebody's treating him like a human being. And I really liked their relationship, because so much of the show is really gut-wrenching and devastating, and a lot of bad shit. We see a lot of bad shit happening to these kids. So, those scenes were very much needed, in my opinion. This episode delves into Corey's relationship with his mom and his trans sister, and tragedy strikes his little sister, and the scene where he says, like, nobody cares about me, and he cries, and the one nice white officer, it's okay, you're okay. And seeing the ghost of his sister, like grown up sister, was really heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think to wrap up in a much more happy note, I think you and I could both agree, like, the ending when you actually see the real people and what they've been doing and getting up to, like, there is a shred of happiness in the end. Like, there is like a sense of catharsis, or is that the word? Yeah, catharsis at the end.
Yeah,
where you see how they were, kind of compensated for the false time, and you see the real people, and they tell they do that biopic thing where they tell you, like, oh, this person is doing this and that, and they correctly use the song Moon River by Frank Ocean for a good emotional moment, not like Long Shot when they used it willy-nilly, but this movie, they use it in a very emotional setting. You see it's this very up close personal shots of the real people, and it just hits you, because it's not fiction, it's nonfiction. These are real people. It's very emotional, but it's very bittersweet. Ava DuVernay's When They See Us, definitely check it out. It's 4 hours. You could binge it in maybe a day. Like, I mean, I didn't binge it like Hito did in like 3 hours.
Well, I didn't either, because circumstances. But yeah, worth checking out, and I think this is one of those things that should be shown in schools, classes. Just should be a mandatory thing to learn about. Like, if somebody asks me, okay, what is the best sort of like visual media to learn about systemic racism in the US, this will be the top of my list.
Our next project, we have different feelings about it compared to When They See Us.
Project? You mean a film?
Yeah, it's a project. These are projects.
It's just the way you phrase it. It's like, this is our project.
No, we're talking about The Five Bloods, Spike Lee's new joint.
Mm-hmm.
See, I said joint because that's correct. But
yes, it is.
The Five Bloods, directed by Spike Lee. It's a Netflix original. I think this is Spike Lee's first ever like Netflix film he's directed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about these four retired veterans of who are black, going back to Vietnam to reclaim gold and their old friend Stormin' Norman. And it's a bit of a spiritual quest in a sense. Like, they go back and like to fulfill their full circle journey with their time in Vietnam. Like, they're veterans of Vietnam, and it's like a reflection of their time in Vietnam. So Spike Lee, I know he gets thrown around as like the very like the polarizing director. Like, all of his films are very like quote unquote polarizing. Sure. I haven't seen a lot of his joints, and I'm not really. I've only seen She's Gotta Have It, Do the Right Thing, Black Klansman, and this. So I don't know if my opinion can really support it, but his films aren't very. I'm not saying aren't. They're very like, they have a clear vision and a clear goal to them. Like, they have a like, here's what I'm trying to tell you to them, and. Do the Right Thing. It critiques New York neighborhood politics. She's Gotta Have It talks about dating culture. Black Klansman critiques how we can change. We could enact change within a institution that's corrupt, like KKK and the police department. And this one, I think overall juggles and messes up a bit on what it wants to say regarding its tone and themes. What do you think, Hito?
Yeah, it's really baggy and messy. On the one hand, it is a very interesting drama about these four veterans getting together and going back to Vietnam to bring home a friend of theirs, a fallen soldier, played by Chadwick Boseman. And when the film delves into their psychological trauma and their identity, I think the movie really shines. On the other hand, it is a heist film. It is about these guys digging gold bars and bringing them home so they can use it for a good cause or for, personal benefits. It clearly draws inspiration from The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. The more action-heavy stuff was less interesting to me, but the dynamic between the four guys or the five guys during the flashbacks is great, and Delroy Lindo is brilliant in it. He plays Paul, who is an Agent Orange supporter, and he says some really racist stuff towards Vietnamese folks, and that was really uncomfortable to see. I think he's given a lot of stuff to work with.
Yeah, it's interesting when they brought up the Trump flag. I mean, not Trump flag, Trump thing, because it's interesting that Spike gives, because I think that the MAGA hat character was his name Paul. The character's name is Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
You could argue that he's the most complex character in the film. He has most of the personality, most of the conflict within him. And it's interesting to see a MAGA supporter given that much complexity. Where if you saw other content, it's they'll give a MAGA character a one dimensional type of character, which kind of brushes them aside. But then this one they give him a lot more character, which I thought was interesting. Personal politics aside, I think it's very bold of him to do that, because it really shows he really wants to show the current attitude of some African American veterans who could have the ideology because of Vietnam. I found it not amusing, just astounding that he did that.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about it. What didn't work, and what I thought was slightly out of place was the use of archival footage from Vietnam War. I also think, as an Asian man, the portrayal of Vietnamese people in this movie is very surface level. And Spike Lee uses some real footage where American soldiers kill Vietnamese people. We also see that famous photo of a naked girl running towards a photographer. We see that in real footage as well, and that's the stuff that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because the movie wasn't really about Vietnam War, and the use of those war footage felt a little exploitative, in my opinion.
I wanted to ask you about that. This is a critique I've heard about BlacKkKlansman, using real life footage to make your product more impactful. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think the use of Muhammad Ali and other black people, black activists, talking. Mm-hmm. I thought that was important. Okay, insert that and stuff like that. Chadwick Boseman, his parts feel in a sense archival, even though he's a fictional character.
Yeah.
I did you think using the Vietnam footage, knowing that it's not really a movie about them, using them as in a sense a symbol or a character for his inner shots, did that feel a bit jarring to insert that?
The opening was fine, but there is a section in the middle of the movie where we see the pictures of dead babies and people dying and lying on the field in the street. That I felt was not necessary. I think the same. I think I realized this was the reaction that some people had for BlacKkKlansman, especially at the footage at the very, very end of the movie when we see the Charlottesville protest.
Yeah,
and people.
Spike Lee, I've noticed does these things. I think more of his later films, not really like his early films, but he tends to use footage that might be not the best for the film in a sense. Another documentary I've seen countless times for some reason was I'm quoting the title of the movie, so I'm not, this is not intention, but it's called I Am Not Your Negro. It's a James Baldwin movie about his last book. The way they use the archival footage in that movie is it does that technique where it shows them like photos of him, but they're stating it's like it's B-roll footage, but it's audio from James Baldwin speaking over the footage. So in a sense, those images and sounds blend together to make one idea. That makes sense because it's the same author with the same subject. Whereas this film, in a sense, you could argue, well, these Vietnam veterans are invaders. You could argue that they were part of an invading force. Because from the Vietnamese standpoint, they're all invaders. Like, color doesn't matter to the invaders.
Yeah.
So to them, you're just an invader attacking our country. So then, in a sense, it's the main characters talking over the Vietnamese atrocities that have occurred in Vietnam. So it might feel like, oh, U.S. imperialism, is blocking over what's happening in Vietnam. I could see how that could be offensive and how it could be a bit, I don't want to say problematic because I don't like using that word, but it could be a bit, what's the word? Tasteless? Not tasteful?
Yeah, tasteless.
Yeah, but that's typically Spike Lee's style, which is, he's a provocateur, but it's effective in what he's trying to say about violence. I'm assuming in this movie, about the effects of war and what it can have on any community, no matter where you're from. Even though back home we consider our identities like Latin American, Asian, stuff like that, you need to consider to other countries which are considered like homogeneous. Like we're fighting over here, because over there we're all the same. Yeah. And it really gives you perspective, like, well, you're still a GI. Like, they kept using that phrase, GI. Like, you're just military to me. I don't care about what you look like. You're military. And it really makes you think, like, how do we play effect to that? I think that's the thing about Spike. When it's a film about politics, you need to be very specific and very careful how you talk about it. Whereas it's films that don't, there are movies about a certain thing that involve race. That's what makes it more intriguing. I feel like this movie, he intended to be very political, but then when you kind of go surface level Vietnam, like, I could firmly say that, like, not that many people are aware about the Vietnamese War. Like, why do we go there? Does communist mean really communist? Like, oh, what does that word mean? Oh no, that word means this. No, I mean, look at it from, instead of an American standpoint, look at it from the Vietnamese standpoint. Like, what was their interpretation? Like, there's a lot of morally gray strands that lie in the war, and we have to remove our American / no, war is evil. Like, we gotta look at it from a very objective perspective. But I feel like Spike kept it very black and white with this film.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a solid film. I don't think it's bad. We both don't think it's bad.
No, I don't think it's bad either.
I think it's what you said earlier, baggy.
So it's worth seeing. It's on Netflix. You should watch it. I wish I could have seen this projected, because aspect ratio changed. I think that would have been cooler looking at it on the big screen. A lot to talk about. So it's messy. It's complicated.
I feel like it's a lot to talk about, but it's a lot to not talk about.
Meaning?
Sometimes it can feel a bit empty, I think. When you got bored, I'm like, what's the point of this? Like, what's the point of this? Recommend it. We both think it was fine, but I highly we both recommend When They See Us. That's a heavy hitter right there. Yeah,
When They See Us was really good. So that's the end of the episode. That's the end of this week's episode. Sorry, brain fart. Throughout this month, So many studios and distribution companies made like a lot of African American black stories, movies about black stories and Black Lives Matter for free. So I rented Just Mercy, and I'm Not Your Negro is on my watch list too. And yeah, a bunch of stuff are available for free. So take advantage of that. I would also recommend The Hate You Give, which I thought was really powerful. Movie from 2018, I think. So yeah, it's most of them are available on Google Play, Amazon, just any content provider.
You know, take some time, donate $5, watch a movie, just learn. I think the biggest piece of advice we both can firmly agree on is think and consider what you're thinking before you speak.
Yeah, I mean, that
shouldn't be crazy. But
yeah, I wish everyone would do that whenever they open their mouths.
yeah, like as much as I'm a big talker, like just think about what you say. And a good phrase to remember is just because you can doesn't mean you should, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that wraps up our thoughts. A good phrase to wrap things up.
Yeah, that's for all the Karens in the world.
Wear your damn masks, please. That's also important. We're still in the crisis, so please wear your mask. Don't make it. It's not political, like AMC said. It's not political. Just wear a damn mask.
Well, thank you, Ricardo, for reviewing these two amazing movie and TV show.
And thank you for guiding the beginning and kind of being you're the cage, the camera cage for this episode. Like keep things in hold.
Cool.
It's a film ref, like a gimbal or something. Okay, never mind then.
And we will see you all next week
on Minority Opinions Podcast.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.